friends, and welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Morgan and you are here on my homestead in Wyoming, where we have a lot of animals, we do a lot of gardening, and a lot of cooking. Today we are going to be in the kitchen getting a lot of meals prepped. We're kind of going to be doing freezer meals, but a little bit different today. So I know that gardening season is coming up. I already have lettuce coming up and starting to sprout. So I know there's going to be a lot of vegetables that are on their way. And these freezer meals normally last me about 4 to 6 months. So we definitely don't eat them every day. It's more a convenience item when we have a late night in the garden, or we're tired after a busy day of work, or anything along those lines. So I like to just use it as fillers, but I do know that I'm going to have a ton of vegetables coming in from the garden, so I want to make sure that I'm creating meals that are going to kind of fit that season of life, and I'm going to be able to use those vegetables from the garden and add to these meals. So with that, I don't love like a lot of casseroles or bake type things in the summer because it heats up my house. And so while we'll do a couple bakes, a little pasta dishes, I think I'm going to try to keep it more along the lines of assembling things so that we can quickly pull them out, make them, use some of the vegetables from the garden, and have a really quick and ready meal. So today I have a list of things that we are going to go through and make. The first thing we're going to make is pizza kits. So what I love about pizzas in the summer is you can actually cook them on the Traeger, so you don't have to heat up the house. So what we're going to do is we're not only going to make the dough, but we're also going to assemble kits. So what I like to do is put everything together. We don't make them. I like to just kind of put in the ingredients that I know are always staples, and then that gives me the opportunity to also customize them. So we'll add a few staple items, and then day of when we're making, we can add fresh veggies or whatnot from the garden. Then we're gonna make barbacoa with some of our elk and antelope roasts that we have. So I know in the summer we love tacos, burrito bowls, anything fresh like that, and it allows us to use a lot of our fresh ingredients. And so I'm going to prep the barbacoa today and make it in smaller dishes so we can break it up, and then that way it'll be in the freezer. I can just quickly pull it out and we'll already have the protein. I find that the protein is the part that makes meals take a long time to cook, so if we already have that done, we'll be able to pull together a meal really, really quickly. Then we're going to make stuffed shells. This is just one of those staples that I absolutely love. It's good all year round. We are going to then be able to put like a salad on the side from the garden or add some fresh basil or whatever, but that will be the only bake that we're making. We're also going to do some chicken marinades. I love being able to just pull some chicken out, throw it on the Traeger, and be done. And then if we have time, I'm going to make an Orzo salad for this week for fresh eating. So if any of that interests you, come along with me and let's get cooking today's freezer meals. First, we're going to start with the pizza dough, and I'm just going to get that working because I'm going to make quite a few batches of it, so that way it can all be done while we're getting the other items done. I like to kind of divide and conquer as much as possible so that while one thing's going, I can be focusing on another. That way everything's just kind of continuing to move, and it definitely helps these long cooking days go quicker. Alright, so you guys have seen me make pizza crust time and time again. It's one of our favorite foods, so all I'm going to do is I'll probably make about 3 or 4 batches of this, but because I have a pretty small KitchenAid, I'm just going to do one batch at a time just to make sure it gets all incorporated. So there I just had 1.5 cups of warm water, and to that I'm going to add in 1/4 teaspoon of active dry yeast, and I just keep this in the freezer, and then I just pull it out anytime I want to use it, and it will literally last for years like that in the freezer. So if you're not doing that, I would highly recommend it. And then 1/4 teaspoon of sugar. And if you're not sure if your yeast is good, you can leave it here and just kind of let it test. It should become bubbly, and that's how you know that your yeast is alive. But because mine's been in the freezer and mine's fairly new, I do know my yeast is good. So what I'm going to do is now add in 3 3/4 cups of bread flour. And I just keep my bread flour in a food grade bucket, and then I like these twist off caps. That way they're really easy to access. One thing that I do when I bring in bulk flour is I actually freeze it for a couple of days. So in the winter it's really easy. I'll just put it outside and let it freeze pretty well for a few days, or if you have room, you can just put it in your freezer. and that way it will kill any bugs or anything like that that might be in it. I know it sounds gross, but it's the realities of bulk food. You want to make sure that you're not storing anything that could have bugs or larvae or anything like that. So I just like to keep mine frozen, and then after it's been frozen for a couple of days, then I bring it inside and put it away in the food grade bucket. So 3 3/4 cups of bread flour. And if you don't have bread flour, totally fine. You can just use all-purpose flour. It just might be a little less like airy. Bread flour just has more of that gluten protein, so it's just kind of what makes it more bready. So all-purpose just might be a little bit more dense. So I'm just going to turn that on and let that mix. Again, I'm going to make a few batches, so I'm going to keep my flour close. And then to this, I'm just going to add a half a teaspoon of salt. All right, you can hear the KitchenAid in the background, but while that dough mixes up, I'm going to throw some water on the stove to get heated up for our stuffed shells. And then I'm gonna get another pot with some oil on it heating up so that we can brown our roasts to make our barbacoa. All right, so while our oil's heating up, I am going to go ahead and get the meat prepped. So this is elk, and these are just roasts. Sam and I process all of our own meat, and Sam does most of our hunting. So actually he does, well, I guess I do some of it too. He does majority of our hunting. And if you're new here, that is how we feed our family. So we do prepare all of these on our own. We process all of them. But you can see here, there is a little bit of silver skin, and I can feel even just how tough that is with the knife. So I'm gonna go ahead and just, let me grab a smaller knife. So I'm gonna go ahead and just do a little bit of detail work to get some of that silver skin off. We definitely could have done this during processing, and normally we do. I think we probably just missed this one. So, okay, that looks good. And then I'm just going to pat this as dry as I can, as much moisture off as possible, because then we're going to put it in the pan that we prepared back there, and we're going to sear it on all sides. And when it's dry, that helps ensure it's actually searing and we're not like steaming it. Perfect, so there's that one. Do this roast next. And this is also, yep, this is also an elk roast. And this one doesn't have any silver skin we need to take care of or anything, so I'm just going to pat it dry. You definitely can use towels or something like that, but for a job like this, I prefer to just use paper towels and keep it a little bit cleaner. Okay, perfect. So there's our roasts. And then all I'm gonna do now that they're dry is cut it into some smaller cubes, and that's just going to help us be able to brown more of it. And it also will help it cook quicker. I'm gonna leave them about this size. All right, there we go. I'm gonna wash my hands really quick, and then we're just gonna salt and pepper this. And then just some pepper. And then you can use a spoon or tongs, but I'm just gonna use my hands since I just washed them. Perfect, and now that we have the salt on it, it's gonna start drawing moisture out of the meat, so let's get this in the pan. All right, our oil is nice and hot, and I'm just going to lay these in one at a time. And we're just gonna let that brown on that side and then we'll flip it. All right, I can see the pan starting to brown, so I'm gonna check the meat. Ooh, yeah, that's exactly what we want. We'll let it brown on this side and then we'll pull it out. All right, so this batch is done. So I'm just going to transfer the meat over into the Instapot. If you have saute mode on your Instapot, you could definitely use that. I just don't, so I'm obviously not going to. And then we're gonna do the second batch, same exact way. All right, beef is all out. Now I'm gonna add in some onions and a little bit of salt to help dry out the moisture from the onions, which will help us get these brown bits off the bottom. And what I'm gonna do, because this is starting to get a little bit darker than I want, I'm gonna add just a splash of beef broth. And then give the pot a scrape, and that'll help us get those brown bits off without giving us a burned flavor. Perfect. So now we're gonna go ahead and let this cook for a couple of minutes until the onions are translucent. All right, this is looking perfect, and these onions will continue to cook in the Instapot, so I'm gonna go ahead and get these out. Perfect, and then to get the rest of the brown bits up, we're gonna add about a cup of beef broth, which is about a half a can. And then give the bottom a good scrape. And then to that, I'm gonna add 3 tablespoons of tomato paste. If you've never bought this tomato paste, I think it's the absolute best. You just poke a hole with the top. And you can just keep this in the refrigerator, and it has the lid so you don't have to waste tomato paste, because I never use a whole can. Or you can definitely make your own, but I don't have that many tomatoes quite yet. So that is 3 tablespoons-ish of tomato paste and of green chilies. I don't have green chilies, so I'm just going to use hot diced jalapenos. I know they're fairly different, but we're using what we have. So just give that a stir, and then we're just gonna let this cook here for just a minute, just to all combine, get those brown bits off the bottom, and then we'll move this onto the roast as well. While this is combining, let's go ahead and get our sauce made for the roast. All right, to make our sauce that is gonna go in with the roast, we need 3 of these chipotle peppers. So this is the brand I'm using. These tend to be pretty hot, so there's 1, 2, 3. Plus, we want 2 teaspoons of just the juice, no peppers. 1. 2. Then 3 tablespoons of lime juice. I'm using this one. A third of a cup of apple cider vinegar. The recipe calls for 3 teaspoons of cumin. As many of you know, I don't love cumin, so I'm just gonna do probably 1 teaspoon worth. We need 1/4 teaspoon of allspice. Again, I'm just gonna eyeball that. Perfect. We need 1 teaspoon of salt. 1 teaspoon of pepper, 5 cloves of garlic. And if you don't have a garlic press, I've only had one for about a year now, but I really feel like you get so much more out of your garlic. So I would highly recommend one. I think this one's just off of Amazon. And then just a half a cup of beef broth. All right, let's blend this up. Okay, so I added in the tomato paste and jalapeno mixture. Now I'm gonna put this sauce on top. And it is so good, it's kind of smoky, a little spicy, so yummy. And then I'm gonna throw in 2 bay leaves, and that's it. We're gonna put the top on. All right, then we're just going to set this to high for 60 minutes. The numbers aren't actually that crazy looking. They're just coming across weird on screen. I don't know why digital numbers do that. Start. That's it. All right, now I'm gonna just get a little more oil down, and we are gonna start making this hot antelope sausage. So we really like hot Italian sausage on pizzas. Well, Sam does. So the breakfast sausage is really not that like breakfasty tasting. So I'm gonna just go ahead and fry some of this up. That way we can keep that in the freezer and put it in our pizza kits, and we have hot sausage. A lot of people have asked what antelope meat looks like, so let me zoom in. This is what our antelope meat looks like. It's very similar to like elk, and I think it tastes very similar to elk as well. This antelope has been cut with, I think it was 10% pork fat, and this was done by one of the processors in town. We didn't do this one, just so that we could get a little bit of variation, and that makes it really good on like pizzas, just having a little bit of fat. Antelope is incredibly lean, very similar to elk. So I'm just going to go ahead and cook that up, and then we'll get that put into our kits. I'll add my bag of shells. And I'm gonna do 2 bags, but I wanna make sure they cook up nicely, so I'm just going to do them in 2 batches. All right, so my pasta has cooked for the allotted amount of time. It's still a bit al dente, which is exactly how I want it, because this is going in a freezer meal, so it's gonna technically be cooked again. So they're definitely not rock hard or anything, but they're not mushy by any means. So I'm gonna go ahead and strain them, and then get a little bit more water added in, and then we'll get our next batch going. I didn't want to completely dump all the water because I need to make another batch of pasta, so the more water I can save, the better. So I'm gonna get these all added into this, add more water in, get that up to temperature, and then we'll get the next batch boiling. And I should mention, I'm gonna put a little bit of olive oil on these just to prevent them from sticking to one another while we sit and wait for the next batch. All right, then at the same time, my pizza dough is done. And I let it sit for a little bit, so it did get a little stuck to the pan, but that's okay. Okay. So you can tell it's done. It's just really like, soft and supple. So that's how we know it's done. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this in a bowl on the side, and we're gonna get another batch made. All right, friends. Next we're gonna make a chicken marinade. We're actually gonna do 3, and these breasts are huge. So I'm just gonna cut them in half, just like so. And then that's basically an entire meal for Sam and I. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut all our breasts in half. Our chicken is all cut up, so now I'm just going to get these going. So the first one we're gonna do is a honey mustard chicken. And let me grab a fork. tongs will actually work better. So what I do for this, and I know they make clips, like baggy clips, but like I always say, I have a pretty small kitchen, and so the less items I have, the better. So I just use this cup and put my bag in it, and then I have a larger cup or like a storage bin that I use when I'm doing gallon-sized bags. But for our honey mustard chicken, all we're going to do is get mustard, agave, some apple cider vinegar, and then I did pre-mince up some garlic here, and then just some seasonings. All right, so first thing we need is 3 tablespoons of honey. I'm just using agave, and I did spray my tablespoon with olive oil to keep the agave from sticking. And then 3 tablespoons. Normally you would want to use a Dijon mustard. All I have is stone ground, so I think that's gonna be perfect. 2, we'll just do like 3 little ones. Perfect, 3. Then I need 2 tablespoons of olive oil. 1, 2, and then we're gonna do 2 teaspoons of apple cider vinegar. Then I just need salt and pepper, about 1 teaspoon of salt. And I'm just gonna set this in the corner here with 1 clove of garlic. And then about 1/2 teaspoon of pepper and 1 teaspoon or so of salt. Perfect, so there's our marinade. Now, while my bag is open, I'm gonna throw in 2 of these chickens. And then I pull it out of my bag. Just try to get as much air out as possible. And then I like to just kind of mix it around and make sure that the chicken's in it. Then there's our honey mustard. Next, we're gonna get going on teriyaki. Perfect. So, same process, I'm just gonna put it in my cup to hold everything in. For this one, we need 1/4 cup of, ooh, that was a little sticky, I need to watch that. 1/4 cup of soy sauce or coconut aminos or whatever you have. Then I have 1 tablespoon of sesame oil. 1 tablespoon of rice vinegar. I'm just using white wine vinegar. I know they're pretty different, but vinegar is vinegar, and that's all I have. Whoa. 1 tablespoon of that, plus a little bit. You want 2 tablespoons of ginger. I only have, and that would be fresh, so I only have powdered, so I'm gonna do a little bit less than that. Perfect. And then a clove of garlic. And then we'll add our chicken in. There's 1. There's 2. Give that one a good mix as well. And there's our teriyaki chicken. I'm gonna make 1 more of these. All right, then last but certainly not least, we're gonna make a balsamic, oopsie, lemon chicken. For this one definitely requires the most amount of ingredients, but oh, it's absolutely delicious. So for this one, you want about 1/3 cup of olive oil. We need 3 tablespoons of lemon juice. 1, 2, we'll call that 3, and I'm very grateful I keep a lot of storage. Let me go grab another lemon juice. Then we need 3 tablespoons of soy sauce. I know this sounds crazy, but it's so good. 1, 2, 3. 2 tablespoons of balsamic. 1, 2. Then we need 1/4 of a cup of brown sugar, which I'm just going to eyeball. Looks good to me. 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire, and I will link this recipe down below. A clove plus a little of garlic, and then a teaspoon of pepper and 1.5 teaspoons of salt. And that's it. Let's throw our chicken in. And one thing you can do, since like this one has a lot of marinade, you can actually put the chicken on the grill and then cook this up in a pan and make like a reduction with it. And then you have a sauce for rice or noodles or whatever you want to put it over. All right, so this went off. It's been naturally releasing. Perfect, yep, for quite a while. So it is hopefully done. So I'm gonna take the lid off. Okay, oh, look at how tender that is. Can you see how that's just falling apart? That is exactly what I was hoping for. Okay, so to shred it, I think this is going to be pretty easy. All I'm doing is just taking a slotted spoon. Oh, it smells so good. And I'm just going to transfer it over, and then I just have 2 forks. Oh my gosh. And I'm just literally putting in no effort and shredding it up. Just look at how easy it just falls apart. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to add this back into the liquid. Give that a good mix. And I do want to give it a try in the sauce. I just had the meat alone. That is phenomenal. It's a little bit spicy, I think, because I used hot jalapenos. It's literally perfect. I don't need to change a thing. Sam is gonna love this. This is such a Sam thing. Okay, we're gonna let this fully cool. And while this cools, let's start getting going on, I think, our stuffed shells. Let's get those going. All right, first thing we're gonna get going on is our stuffing for the stuffed shells. So this is basically the same, if you've ever made like a lasagna, this is gonna be the same type. So I just have a big 30-ounce container of ricotta. And this is whole milk ricotta. You can use whatever kind you want. It's the perks of cooking from home, right? And I'm just gonna loosen it up a little bit. Okay, I love ricotta, love it. Then to that, we're gonna add 1 egg. This is an egg from our chickies. Wash my hands. Then here I just have some mozzarella cheese that I shredded earlier. So actually, since this bowl's a little bit small, I'm gonna whip. 1 egg didn't look like quite enough, so I'm actually gonna do 2. Okay, now let's give that a mix. So now I'm just gonna add in some parsley, and you just want to add an Italian seasoning. This is freeze-dried. If you've never used freeze-dried herbs, they're a million times better than what you normally would get. This is basil, because you don't lose the flavor as much because they're freeze-dried. When you dehydrate, you mildly cook things, which changes the flavor. So these taste so much closer to the real deal and are so good. So I try to use freeze-dried herbs when I can, and then just some salt. Give that a good mix. Whoa. Okay, then I'm gonna add in some of this pre-shredded mozzarella. That looks good. I probably did a cup and a half, probably 2 cups. Okay, now the best part is assembly. Literally couldn't be any easier. So we're just gonna take a jar of our marinara sauce and put a little bit of it down on the bottom. Just like so. And then, oops, you're like, literally, it's gonna be simpler. You're just gonna take as much as you want of the stuffing and just fill up your shells. It's funny because I grew up thinking like stuffed shells and lasagna were like one of the hardest things to make, and it's so funny because they're actually so simple. They're one of the easier things to make. It's just funny how you have a perception when you're younger, and then when you start getting older, you start realizing, wait a second, that's not as hard as I thought. It's tedious, but it's pretty simple. And the fuller you fill them, the more likely they are to make a mess, but in my opinion, the yummier they will be. Perfect. And then Sam can pack away the shells. So I then just put a little bit of sauce. Okay. Then I'm just going to take a little mozzarella, sprinkle that on top of them, and then throw the lid on, and we have a meal. I'm just going to repeat that until all of my shells are gone. All right, friends, so next I feel like the whole point of freezer meals is making sure that you're using up your food, nothing's going to waste, and that you have easy meals prepped and ready to go. So I am going to make a Orzo salad. This is one that I literally grew up eating, and I love it. I had some bell peppers in the fridge and just some, like literally all of the ingredients I needed. So I figured, let's go ahead and make this up, and then I can eat it for lunches this week. We're having a fun little get together this weekend, so then I can bring it with us there. It really will just serve as a perfect little side dish, and is just a little meal that we can have and have it prepped. That is one thing I really like about pasta salads, and Orzo salads specifically, is they last pretty well in the fridge. So you can make it and save it and eat it for a few days, and it'll be perfectly good. Then I have an English cucumber, and since it's a pasta salad, you want everything roughly around the same size. You're welcome to peel your cucumber if you want. The peels don't really bother us, so I'm going to leave it on. Then we're just going to take some tomatoes, and if this was garden season, that would be a million times better, but It's not quite that time, so these are going to be perfect. And we're just going to cut those into fourths. All right, our water's boiling. I'm just going to dump in a box of Orzo. We're going to cut up some olives. I just cut these in half. We're just going to throw a can of drained chickpeas. Clearly it's becoming the end of the night because I'm making quite a mess. Then I'm going to let this sit, and once the orzo is done, we're going to add that in. All right, our orzo is done, so I'm just going to toss that in and then just give it a little bit of a break up. Then all I'm going to add is some olive oil, pepper, some basil. If you have the fresh, that's better, but we don't. And then some balsamic vinegar. And then we'll give this a good mix. And then you just sprinkle in some feta or whatever kind of cheese you like. And there you go. That's literally it. The easiest orzo salad. Okay, next we're gonna assemble our pizza kits. So all I do for that is I just take a gallon bag and spray it. This is just a reusable one. I've never actually used a reusable one, so we're gonna see how we like it. I normally just use a regular gallon bag. And as you can see, our dough has done quite some rising, which is totally fine. You don't have to let it rise. I usually don't, but since it was sitting out, it did. And then I just take the gallon bag and rub the dough around in there, and then just place it in like so. I'm gonna wash my hands really quick. And then to create the kits, you have to think about the components that you usually always have. So we always have marinara, but we have this canned up on the pantry shelf, so I don't worry about that. But what we always want is protein and meat. So this is that antelope breakfast sausage, or I guess it's more of just like a spicy sausage that we cooked up. And I have 3 pizzas, so I'm gonna divide this by 3. Perfect. So there is our meat. And then I also have some pepperoni right now, and I'm gonna put that in a Ziploc bag as well. Now, if you have more self-control than we do, you don't need to do this step per se, but the way Sam and I work is if we see pepperoni just like sitting in the refrigerator, it's gonna be eaten and it's gonna be gone, and then we're gonna go to make pizzas and we won't have our pepperoni. So I find I prefer if we can just get it allocated to where it belongs, and then I don't have to be pepperoni police making sure we don't eat it for the wrong thing when I know that we have pizzas coming up. Perfect, just like that. And then I seal that up. And I would normally put mozzarella cheese in here too, but we used it all on the shells. I wasn't thinking. And then I literally just take these bags and stick them in here. And that way, when I go to pull out a pizza crust, all I have to do is take out these bags, and I have literally a full pizza between the cheese that's usually in here and then the sauce and my meat. I can make a pizza in a matter of seconds. And honestly, that's what makes convenience food so convenient, is it's all right there. So I don't have to worry about making a frozen pizza or anything. I have everything right here. So I'm gonna get the rest of them packaged up, and we'll be done with the pizza dough. All right, friends, here's a closer look at everything we've done. So we have 3 pizza kits, 5 stuffed shells, 2 containers of barbacoa, 5 different chicken marinades, and our orzo salad. All right, friends, that is it for today. I did end up putting the barbacoa just in Snapware containers, so those will go out in the freezer like that. And then the 3 stuffed shells that are in the foil, we'll just get the lids put on them, and then I'll wrap them in one layer of foil. And honestly, those will probably go pretty quickly, so I'm not too worried about it. I think that's everything. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope you found today's video helpful and gave you some inspiration for some meals that you can make at home. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to come hang out with me. If you liked today's video, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing so you don't miss any more cooking, gardening, and homesteading videos. And otherwise, I will catch you in the next one. Bye, friend.